Before I start the video, just want to let you know I have a Discord server for the Dark Science YouTube channel. October is finally here, and Halloween is not that far away. That means putting up decorations, carving pumpkins, and watching horror movies where people get chased by maniacs with chainsaws. You'd think getting attacked with a chainsaw has very little chance of survival, and most of the time, you'd be right. But there are real-world examples where people who were attacked and even partially beheaded with the chainsaw actually live. In this video, I'll explain 2 cases where people survive gruesome chainsaw injuries and explain how surgeons managed to save their lives. Welcome to Dark Science. I can't show the images from these studies on YouTube because they're too graphic. However, they will be accessible for free on my Patreon. In the first case study, a 52-year-old Nigerian man who worked in a lumberyard got into a heated argument with his coworker. The argument escalated and his coworker attacked him with a chainsaw. The saw blade was dragged from the left hypochondriac region down to the umbilical region, creating a 30-centimeter long laceration. Organs located in the upper left quadrant of the body spilled out of the open wound. This included the stomach, a section of the small intestine, and the transverse colon. Due to being far from a hospital and lacking proper emergency services in Nigeria, it took 1.5 hours for the victim to be transported to a hospital. When he was checked into the hospital, he was in stable condition. To prep for investigation, doctors cut off several blood-soaked shirts that were wrapped around the organs to stop the bleeding, but had become caked with dry blood. To prevent infection of the exposed organs, a saline solution was used to irrigate the exposed viscera. Gauze soaked in saline was then placed on the organs to preserve them and prevent further bleeding. Upon checking the organs for damage, doctors found the stomach had a small laceration on the left side. The diaphragm also had an 8-centimeter laceration on its left side as well. The organs were irrigated once more and the lacerations were sewn shut. Surgeons repositioned the organs back into the body and sewed the abdomen shut. To ensure there was no fluid buildup, an abdominal drain was placed in the lower left side of the abdomen. Now, you would think having a 30-centimeter cut in your abdomen where your organs spill out would cause tons of blood loss. However, this isn't the case. The patient lost an estimated 200 milliliters of blood, which is this much, a surprisingly small amount for such a large cut. His low blood loss is attributed to the laceration being fairly superficial and having missed major arteries in the organs. After 16 days in the hospital, he was finally discharged and could go back to work. Whether he went back to the lumberyard is a different story. While some chainsaw injuries are related to being attacked, there are others that are self-inflicted, such as by accident. But in this next case, this self-inflicted injury was not accidental, if you catch my drift. A 23-year-old German man attempted auto-decapitation using a chainsaw. The study does not disclose how he attempted it, but the patterns of lacerations give a clue as to what happened. Deep cuts were found on the back of the neck, with more superficial cuts toward the right side of the neck. This indicates the blade first struck the back, meaning he intended for the chainsaw to cut from back to front. However, it's not clear if he laid backwards on the running blade or had it fall on his neck from behind. What is clear is something went terribly wrong, which in his case is actually kinda good. As the chainsaw started to cut, it deviated from the expected path, creating a haphazard cut around his neck. This may have happened either due to kickback from the chainsaw, or he was launched off the running blade. Chainsaw kickback happens when the chain at the upper tip of the guide bar suddenly catches on an object. This causes the chainsaw to jerk backwards violently. As it flew off, it may have dragged itself across his neck, causing the cuts. The second theory is if he laid backwards on the chainsaw, the chain got caught on muscle or bone. Instead of cutting through, the chain pulled him clockwise off the blade. This would explain the cut running from back to front. In neither case, the chain did not fully decapitate. He was found by his brother in the morning, who called paramedics. Incredibly, physicians not only found a circulation, but a stable circulation. On the Glasgow Coma Scale, he scored a 13. Indicating his brain had not suffered serious damage from lack of blood flow or oxygen. In fact, his score was equal to someone with a mild concussion. In case you don't know, the Glasgow Coma Scale is a metric doctors use to assess the amount of brain damage a patient has sustained to the brain, either from lack of oxygen or direct trauma. The higher the score, the better shape the brain is in. Lacerations ran from the back of the neck all the way to the right side, ending 4 inches below the right ear. Cervical muscles were severed and his C3 and C4 vertebrae were chipped and fractured. Despite the extensive damage, there were no major internal injuries. The cervical vertebrae, though chipped and fractured, were still connected. The carotid arteries were untouched, and his trachea and esophagus were intact. Since there wasn't enough pressure on the chainsaw, it didn't cut deep enough to cut through the vertebrae, or any other internal anatomy. Though most of the damage was on the surface of the neck, surgeons had to start internally with the vertebrae. The right lamina of the C3 vertebrae was too fractured and weakened to be part of the cervical structure, so it had to be cut off. The C4 vertebrae had partial erosion of the inferior articular process, but was strong enough to be left alone. Intravertebral discs were removed between the C3, C4, and C5 vertebrae, and were replaced with an implant and fixation screws. This was done to reduce pain on spinal nerves and increase cervical stability. Neck muscles were reconstructed and soft tissue around the neck was sewn shut. The only long-term issue the patient sustained was reduced sensation in the ring finger and pinky finger of his right hand. No other nerve or muscle damage was present. Though the outcomes of these 2 chainsaw incidents were not fatal, it goes without saying, these are very, very rare exceptions, not the rule. Ultimately, both individuals survived because their injuries were in just the right places. Inches or even millimeters of a difference could have changed everything. So this Halloween, if you ever find yourself being chased by a madman with a chainsaw, and I hope you don't, your best chance of survival is not luck, it's to run. So have a happy Halloween, and thank you for watching Dark Science.